Hey, what's up, everybody? Thanks for hanging out with us for a few minutes as we unveil our summer season content for summer of 2020. Summer of 2020. That's pretty wild. So we're going to be chatting about all things summer content release, series titles, series graphics, some components, some themes, some really cool stuff that we're excited about. My name's Brett. If we haven't met before, I do help host the Orange Students podcast, Rethinking. What do we call it? The
Youth
Rethinking. We've recorded a couple episodes today, so I'm a little fried. It's that one. The one that
the outfit.
The one that she said. Yeah. So we're talking about summer stuff. So I wanted to kind of pizzazz myself a little bit. So
it is not currently summer.
It's not currently summer. So we're talking about summer, but it's February, and I think it's rained for 38 straight days. We almost got to that biblical 40 straight days of rain. We're not there yet, but I'm in my Hawaiian shirt, and Ashley
is in a turtleneck.
Has a turtleneck and a power blazer on. I think she's got a job interview somewhere else later is what's happening. But anyways, so I help host the podcast, and my real job is, I'm going to take these off when I say real job. My real job is a student Orange specialist for our Orange students team. Essentially, that's a free ministry coach that comes along with your partnership with Orange. And hanging out with me today is Ashley, who helps. She also is on the podcast, but she is our XP3 middle school director. And then Crystal is our XP3 high school director. So since we're talking about summer, and since I sort of look like Magnum PI right now, I would love to hear, Crystal, your favorite memory from high school summers, and Ashley, your favorite memory from your middle school summers. Do you guys have anything?
So there's not a lot of great high school summer memories competing because I was an only child. And so summers were like lonely and boring and sad. But my junior year in high school, I started attending a different youth group that went to a church camp, and my church had never done that. And so I went to church camp, and I thought this was the best week of my whole life. I remember every day being like, I can't believe, like, I get to eat pizza every day.
Square, was it like the school rectangle pizza?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
But there were like other people around, which was really helpful. And then at the end of that week, my parents were supposed to pick me up at church camp and go to the beach. And when they picked me up, I said, I need the extra clothes you packed for me because that includes swimsuits that I now know are sinful, and threw them away. And I need all the CDs you brought for me to listen to, and threw them away because that's what you do at the end of church camp.
Wow. What did you do the whole trip down?
I have no idea.
Did you have one lone Stephen Curtis Chapman CD that you listened to the whole time?
I literally think it was the worship CD I bought at church camp, and that's what I listened to on our family vacation because I thought that's what good Christians had to do.
Nice.
But I loved it. I thought it was great. Like,
awesome.
Threw away everything. My parents were concerned that I joined a cult.
So summer camp
were you
matters,
excited
friends.
about this?
I loved it.
Okay, cool.
I thought it was the best thing ever. Looking back, I'm like, that's weird. My parents had to have been really concerned.
Or proud.
Or proud.
Yeah.
Or concerned.
You should call and ask them.
Yeah.
You should call them right now and ask
Nope.
them.
I promise you we're not going to do that.
All right, changing the
Crystal's
subject for you,
mom.
Crystal. Ashley, what do you got?
Summer for me, while I was in middle school,
Yep.
I don't know if I remember the amount of details that Crystal just laid out for us about the decisions she made as a high school student. And mine were definitely not at church camp, but they were at a camp, and it was probably more like a soccer or basketball camp. I can't remember necessarily a specific example, but I know my whole summer was planned around the basketball or soccer camps that I would attend.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right.
And I guess I was excited about them.
Sweet.
I can't remember.
I never went to soccer camps. I don't know what soccer camp. What do you just play soccer games?
Oh, Brett.
I feel like it's band camp, but worse.
Band camp, but worse. I never went to band camp either.
I mean,
I was the church kid. I was the one who was at church camp.
Wait, hold on a minute. Like, you really don't know what, like, I had never met somebody who wasn't at a sports camp before.
I guess I did baseball camps, but
I've never been to a sports camp.
That doesn't surprise me.
we're gonna. On that note, we're
you practice your skills, you get better, you have fun, you have competitions, and you win.
okay. And all right, you can see who the competitive one is here. If you're Enneagram fans, you know who the 3 is of the 3 of us. Okay, we would actually love to hear from you with that. What is your favorite thing that you remember from middle school or high school summers? We want you to jump in the comments. Were you throwing your CDs away after church camp? Were you going around to soccer and basketball or band camps or whatever it was? And we're also going to be doing these more often, hopefully, where we kind of dive in every single season that we release some content, what's going on, what's happening. And we'd love to hear a little bit more from you. What would you love to see? And if you do leave a comment, then the powers that be, not me, so don't be mad if you don't win, but they're going to choose one person who leaves a comment, and you are going to win this bad boy right here.
We're giving that away?
We're giving it away.
Nice.
This is our weekend retreat product. So essentially, it can be a middle school retreat. It can be a high school retreat, or it can be a combined middle school, high school retreat. It's called In the Making. I've taught this stuff before. I know Ashley just did like this last weekend. It's awesome. It's got graphics. It's got bumper videos. It's got all sorts of stuff in there.
It's got set designs, t-shirt designs,
boom,
like the whole retreat's in there.
Yeah. So leave a comment, let us know, and you'll have a chance of winning that amazing thing right there. And we're sweetening the pot. Because there's this awesome little vinyl record that you get with this, we will include, if you win, a record player. Because a lot of people don't have a record player.
Wow.
We're going to send you this, which has a vinyl on there with some pretty sweet surprises on that vinyl record. And we're going to go ahead and just send you a record player too, assuming that you might not have one.
Wow.
Sound good?
I feel like they should make a video of themselves listening to the record.
Yes.
That's good.
And send it in.
An
I need to
unboxing
see
where
that.
they open it all and then they play it and they listen to it. Yeah. So maybe they're going to have to do that. So as we transition a little bit here, if you are new to kind of the Orange Students community, maybe you're familiar with maybe Orange Students. We're a part of the Orange Students team. Maybe you are familiar with Rethinking Youth Ministry podcast. But one of the things that we do is we produce curriculum called XP3 Middle School and XP3 High School that Ashley and Crystal lead respectively. So yeah, if you want to know more about the curriculum that we're going to be talking about, you can go to orangestudents.com. You can try it for free. You're going to learn more about what's coming up this season as we talk. So before we jump into the content, as the directors of XP3 High School, XP3 Middle School, share a little bit about how content like this comes together. Because this isn't just Ashley sitting in her room. Sorry, Ashley sitting in her room, long day.
It's interchangeable.
And Crystal sitting in her room, like just writing for 3 months to come up with something. What does it look like? How does this all come together?
There are so many people involved in this. Like, I feel like Ashley and I get to talk about the curriculum a lot, but in reality, there's between 50 and 70 different people who jump in with us every season in
Per
each
age group.
per age group.
Wow.
There are a ton of people, from educators to theologians to pastors, youth pastors, counselors have jumped in with us a number of times, writers, editors, the whole situation. And we love getting to work with people from different fields. They always bring something different to the table.
Yeah.
And especially when we tackle some tougher subjects, like you'll hear a little bit later that we're tackling this season, it's helpful to have some professionals in the room as we do that.
Yeah.
And what I always loved about that as a student pastor when I was using XP3 is when I started kind of with the product itself, with the series and with the graphics and with the scripts. I knew that it wasn't just some one person's thoughts and opinions, that it had already gone through a bunch of different lenses and perspectives and backgrounds and denominations and experiences, which I may have already said. Have I said it's been a long day? And then I was able to take that and just make it work in the context for my students. So I love that piece of it. One more thing that is a little bit unique to us that I want to make sure that you understand in case you're kind of new to the XP3 world is that we release content seasonally. So when someone has a year-long license, they're actually going to get content 4 different times over those years. Crystal, why do we do that?
Because student culture moves so fast. Like, honestly, it would be a lot easier for us to create a whole year of curriculum and just dump it all at once. Maybe dump's not the right word.
I prefer to use that word.
Easy may not be the right word
to
either.
everyone all at once. Logistically, sometimes that would make more sense. But what we found is that student culture moves so fast that if we were to write something for students today, in 6 months, it would sound dated.
Yeah.
And in a year, it would sound really, really dated. I mean, I think about things that were cool and trending and cultural a year ago, and my students aren't talking about those things at all right now. We weren't talking about TikTok a year ago.
Yeah.
And now I don't talk about anything else. So we release seasonally, which allows us enough time to produce, something of quality for churches to use, but at the same time is close enough to student culture that we're not setting churches up to be a little bit behind.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah. So we do a 3-year scope and cycle. So we have suggested dates. If, some people say, hey, just tell me what to do, when to do it.
Sure.
And some people say, hey, we kind of have our own scope and cycle. And so wherever people fall in that, we release things quarterly, 2 months before it's set to be used on our calendar. And so with the stuff that we're going to be talking about, which is released for us and our scope and cycle for summer, May, June, July, some people are going to use it over the summer, and some people are going to take those series and maybe use it at a camp because they don't even meet over the summer.
Right.
Or they're going to take a series they really like and they're going to use it in the fall. So it kind of works in whatever way that it works for you. All right, so now that we've got that out of the way, let's get into the summer. All right, Ash. So what do you want to talk about first?
Well, funny enough, the first series we're going to talk about is the topic of judging. Okay?
I don't get it.
And we're going to spend 3 weeks talking about the topic of judging, which I'm really excited about because middle schoolers really struggle with this.
Okay.
First of all, they're in a phase of life where they really care about what everybody else is thinking, and groupthink is a big thing. So they may not have a certain opinion until they hear somebody else has an opinion, and all of a sudden they have that opinion. Then all of a sudden they're saying their opinion, and they don't always have necessarily the filter to think through, like, what's the outcome of me saying this going to be? And so I'm really excited to spend 3 weeks digging in with middle schoolers about how their words can actually build people up or tear them down, and how oftentimes when we judge people, we don't know the full story about why they're wearing goggles over their glasses or something like that. But what I'm really excited for specifically in the middle school series is called In My Opinion, which oftentimes we use that phrase like, well, in my opinion.
IMO, right? That's one of the little
it's almost like, let me judge you for a second.
Yeah.
But I'm going to just say this is my opinion to like soften the blow just a little bit.
It's like, no offense.
Exactly. But what I love about this series for middle school is we actually created 3 different bumpers for this series.
Seriously?
Yes.
Yay.
And they're interactive bumpers. So there's these like hands that like basically we're giving them an opportunity to make an opinion. The hands are kind of pointing to either side of the room, and all 3 weeks have different pictures. Like, do you like pizza or hot dogs? You have to point to the side of the room. So the bumper actually becomes like an interactive piece, and it just changes all the different things they get to vote on each week. So I'm very excited about this. And we also made lock screens or like printable pieces to help students, because a lot of times it's just impulsive that they make a judgment about somebody without thinking through it. And so just as a way to remind them as they walk through the weeks that we're walking through the series, remember what they're learning and what they're talking about. So.
Very
cool. All right. Middle school. What about high school? What are we looking at?
So I feel like the idea of judgment just grows up in high school. It's not that they stop doing it. It's that they get better at it. And it becomes a little bit like a sport. Like, I don't know if you felt that way with your students, that gossip is kind of a sport or a pastime or a hobby.
Is there summer judgment camp in the same way?
That may have been the camp I went to.
That's hilarious.
But we actually sometimes love it when we're in high school. And so that's why we named the judgment series Love Hate, because we all tend to hate on people and we kind of love doing it. But at the same time, Jesus calls us to love instead of hate. So there's a lot of play on words there.
Cool.
I'm really excited that we actually start with gossip. And you may notice if you're digging into our teaching scripts, we use the term gossip and trash talking interchangeably because in our culture, sometimes those words get assigned to genders.
Yeah, that's true.
And we don't want anybody in the room assuming, oh, I don't do this. This isn't me. No, this is literally all of us. And then in week 2, I'm really excited about this week, but it's because it's helping students uncover the skill of making a generous assumption.
Yeah.
When we don't know why someone is doing what they're doing, making an assumption out of love and not an assumption out of hate, which I think is a skill that could be really helpful for the adults in our world too. So we're trying to set them up to be those kinds of adults. So one thing that I'm really excited about is the expansion pack.
Yeah.
Now, if you don't know what an expansion pack is for us, we recognize that some ministries have a primetime service and everything happens there, but other ministries have a primetime and maybe a secondary time. Yeah. And maybe that's Sunday school and maybe that's a student leadership team. And so we create some additional activities for those spaces. And one of them for this Love Hate series is, I'm almost embarrassed to say it because it sounds ridiculous. It's the woman caught in adultery Mad Lib.
What now?
I know it sounds so bad, but think about that story. of the woman who is caught in adultery and what people around her said about her versus what Jesus said about her. And then take adultery out. What's a bad thing that happens in our culture? What do people say about people who do that sort of thing? What would Jesus say about someone who has done that sort of thing? And reframing the things we tend to gossip about in the way that Jesus would have responded to them. I'm so excited for students to do that. That's pretty cool. Yeah.
Shout out to Mad Libs there.
Yeah. Shout out to Mad Libs.
Maybe don't talk to parents using the term woman caught in adultery Mad Lib.
The adulterous Mad Lib.
It needs context. You can't just throw that out.
And I forgot to mention this, but we're just kind of covering some highlights. We have these things called season overviews that basically do a deeper dive into actually what all the series and the verse for every single week and the bottom lines. We're going to post those in the comments. So if you do want to dive a little bit deeper into some of these, you've got a chance to do this. We're just kind of trying to hit some of the highlights. All right, so Crystal, what about the next one?
Okay, so next we're going to do a 5-week series on the life of Joseph. There's a ton in Joseph's story that students can connect to, but mostly it's the idea of he met all these kinds of situations where he had no idea what to do next and chose to do the next right thing. So for high school, this series is called What to Do When You Don't Know What to Do.
What to do when you don't know what to do.
Yep, that's it.
And I just want to point out that the whole when you don't know what to do the next right thing feels very Frozen 2.
Okay.
But we wrote this before it came out, so I kind of feel like Disney copied us, but whatever.
Yeah.
I mean,
100% that's what happened.
And if you want to use,
I haven't seen the movie yet, so I'm a little lost in the woods with what you're talking about right now. Oh!
I'm really proud of you right now. Crystal didn't get that joke, but
not at all. No Disney.
She's not a Disney person.
Disney.
Leave your hate below.
I don't want to be Disney shamed on the internet.
Biggest Crystal Disney shame will win a record player.
Wow. This is great. This is great.
Sorry, you can take that out.
All right, what to do when you don't know what to do.
And the middle school version is called Big Picture.
Okay.
Kind of
way less words, by the way.
Yep. Less words.
Less words. Easier to abbreviate.
But the whole idea of we don't, when we look at one specific thing that Joseph went through, we don't know what God was going to do with it. And so 2 things I'm really excited about for that series for middle school specifically are interactives, which is just a way that we help teach that piece or that truth. We actually are doing like a visual timeline for the 5 weeks of this Joseph series. So every time we talk about a specific thing in his life, we're going to put like a prop on the stage and it's going to create a timeline across the stage.
That's cool.
So as we talk about his life and we talk about how Joseph didn't know that this thing was going to lead to this thing, which was going to lead to this thing, and kind of walk through his life. And then in addition to that, their XP, their experience piece during small group, there are 5 different journal pages, one for each week. And they're interactive journal pages for them to kind of respond and process through it. But at the end of the 5 weeks, if you put all 5 journal pages together,
what happens?
It says Big Picture, and it's this big like artwork. Which I'm really proud about. So it's like a puzzle. Get it? Like each week was part of the bigger or a piece of the bigger picture.
Aww. Look at you guys.
So cute.
Thinking about things, planning. All right, Ash, what is the next one? 2 down, 2 more to go.
The next one we're excited about is specifically on the topic of influence.
Okay.
Which for a middle schooler, it's something they really desire. Insert like, I want to be a YouTube influencer and like go viral, right? But at the same time, a lot of times middle schoolers are unaware of the influence they actually do have. Yeah. And oftentimes influence is talked about in a negative way, maybe for them. And so we're trying to really help them understand that they do have influence. Maybe it's over their siblings, maybe it's over their friend group. But in middle school, they're still becoming aware of that. And so something I'm really excited about, our series is called Popular. And I'm excited because in our small groups, week 1, the small group leaders are going to get a chance, and ministry leaders prepare them ahead of time, but you're going to get a chance to speak like what kind of influence you see each kid having. So you're going to get to speak encouragement to each kid in your small group out loud to the small group. So that's week 1. And then the second week, you're probably going to want to work with like your children's ministry or your nursery. And we're going to help students get plugged in serving somewhere. Like if they want to have influence, here are opportunities for you to have influence. And the third week, they're going to actually write a letter of encouragement to themselves for when they mess up.
Oh, wow.
Because a lot of times, we feel like when we mess up, nobody ever wants to, be influenced by us again. And so we're trying to talk with them about like, hey, we all mess up. None of us are perfect. And when you do, this is what you're going to need to remember. So I'm really excited about the actual like applying of those truths.
Very cool. All right, Crystal, what about high school? What's that look like?
Okay. So I don't know if you've ever had this experience that you have been in a meeting and an idea sounded like a good idea to everybody in the room in that meeting. And 3 months later or 6 months later, you come back and go, this is a terrible idea. But that's what happened to
That's
our
what
team.
this series is?
That's okay. So originally we named this influence series Under the Influence. And you can imagine there are some complications with that name. But we're like, okay, that's a phrase that gets used a lot. It'll probably be fine until you try to create a bumper video that doesn't include like drunk driving images. And it got really uncomfortable. And so we eventually came to the conclusion that title would be a little bit of a distraction and that there was a better title. So the influence series for high school is called The You Effect.
Okay.
And it's the whole idea that students don't always realize the effect they have on every room they walk into. And we want to teach them not only to recognize the you effect, but to leverage the you effect for other people. So in week 1, similar to middle school, we talk about how you have more of an effect than you probably realize in every room, in your family, in your friend group, even in the world around you. And then in week 2, I'm really excited about this one because we're setting up what the you effect looks like in a small group. I think a lot of times students look at like giant movements and wonder, how can I have a big effect on the world when I'm just a 10th grader, hanging out in my geometry class? But the reality is you have more of an effect when you have an effect alongside another group of people. And so we want to set up small groups to not only be a safe place for you to come, but a safe place for you to serve together. So we talk a lot about that idea in week 2. And then in week 3, we dive into something that affects a lot of high schoolers, which is what happens when you had trust and influence with people and you've done something to lose it. And how do you regain trust? And we land on this idea that lost influence isn't lost forever. There's always hope and there's always a way to take a positive step forward. So really excited about the you effect. The experience piece for this one is to take the collective yous in your group and go have an effect on a place that really needs it in the summertime, which is your local high school. And so we're challenging groups to go into their local high school and in mass, planned, by the way, don't ever do this spontaneously, in mass help the custodial staff who often is working without air conditioning, doing a really tough job in a really short amount of time.
Oh, man.
Help them do their job faster so that they can take some time off.
That's awesome.
Yeah, isn't that cool?
Good.
And maybe very different than what the XP was going to be for Under the Influence.
Yeah, that was another problem.
Especially in the summer.
We couldn't find an experience piece for Under the Influence.
All right, we're going to move on. All right, so Crystal, there's one more series left for the summer. What do you got?
Yes. So you know that for the past few years, we've been doing a collection of standalone talks. You get one talk that just stands by itself. You can use it at any point during the season, but we use that to tackle topics that you might not want to talk about for 3 weeks or 5 weeks, but they're super important. And I think this one might be one of the most important we have ever hit. And it's the topic of consent. Consent. And that's a really big word in our world, and it's really complicated and gets tricky very quickly. And so just like a lot of the topics that we talk about in the I Have Questions and the Trending series, you get into it and you go, this is really about something else. And so in the high school version of the consent talk, we're talking about how consent is really important, particularly in your dating and sexual relationships, but that it is only the first step and that God calls us to a standard beyond consent, which is honoring other people. And we want you to begin to not only express honor towards others, but to expect honor for yourself because you're made in the image of God. And because you're made in the image of God, there's a certain amount of dignity that you should be given. And so teaching students the real skills behind what does it look like to express honor and to expect honor in addition to consent.
Wow.
Yeah.
What in the world does that look like with middle school, Ash?
So definitely a little different, but it's really cool if you look at both of these scripts next to each other, like how they build on each other is so important because consent education is a huge thing in our culture right now. And honestly, probably a lot of us ministry leaders and parents of our teenagers haven't had consent education. And so I think this is really important to make sure we are partnering with parents and are preparing our small group leaders for these conversations, because this may be one of the first conversations they've had. But specifically for middle school, when we started thinking about consent for middle school, we're aware that, you know, they may only have context of consent for like the consent form their parent needed to sign for the field trip. Like that may be their only context. Other middle schoolers might only connect it to the topic of sex because of whether it was the Me Too movement or something they saw on their news feed. And that may be their only context for it. And so we decided that we really wanted to first define it for middle schoolers so they really understood what it meant. And the way we're defining it is to agree to do something or allow something to happen is the way that we're defining it. We also felt like for middle school, a big thing is middle schoolers don't often feel like they have the power to give consent for something. Like their parent still chooses when they eat, what they eat, if they can go, if they can't go. And so middle schoolers are just gaining the autonomy to make some of those decisions. And so a lot of times they haven't been told like, hey, you have the power in this situation to say yes or no. And you have the power in this situation to honor somebody else's yes or no. Especially when like middle schoolers are like joking around, like if somebody's like, stop it. And they're like, haha, this is funny. Like there's just so many like boundaries in general are kind of gray in middle school. And so we really are approaching it more like saying no to smaller things will actually help you say no to bigger things. And honoring other people's small no's will help you honor other people's big no's. And so things like, no, I don't want you to post that picture of me, or no, I don't want to take that picture, or no, I don't want you to, I'm trying to think of an example. No, I don't want to hold your hand, or no, I don't want to do that. And giving them tools to understand that saying no doesn't mean you're mean. And that, you know, it's actually respecting yourself. And similar to high school, our bottom line is honor others and expect to be honored by others. We're kind of approaching it like honor is still a little abstract, just like consent, it can be a little abstract. And so we're approaching it with like the idea of royalty. The reason that we act a certain way towards royalty is we honor them. We want to show our respect to them. And the same thing's true in all of our relationships, from the words we speak, the comments we make, the things we post. And it kind of builds towards this idea of, you know, those no's and that consent you choose to honor or not will help set you on a course for maybe a stronger sense of self-worth in the future. And also keeping in mind, like we know our teenagers, a lot of them, according to statistics, have had their consent ignored or maybe were never given a chance to consent to something. And so I think it's an incredibly sensitive topic. And so we've included some additional resources for ministry leaders when it comes to this topic, including like a preview video you can send to parents, because I'm guessing, especially for middle school, I don't know about high school, but a parent is going to want to consent if their kid is going to be talking about consent with your small group leaders. And so,
That's great. I mean, Joseph, influence, like, I mean, those are things, judgment, that are fairly normal conversations and good conversations for us to have in student ministry. This idea of consent is not one that probably normally happens in churches with students. And so there might be some pushback from parents. So I'm glad that we've got some of these extra resources to help set up how we're going to have this conversation.
I like that you said it's not always happening in churches. I think we know that that's probably true. But at the same time, this is a dominant conversation in our culture. And there is a dominant ethic emerging in our culture that is saying that consent is all you need. And so as church leaders, I would imagine if we don't have that conversation and we don't cue our families and our parents and our caregivers to have those conversations, that the only conversation a kid may ever have about this is coming from a television show or from the other kids at school. So as scary as it is, and we certainly felt that writing it, we think it's an important conversation for us to set up.
Well, and what I love about what we get to do as Orange Specialists is if you jump into this content, or if you're reading about this idea of talking with consent with my middle schoolers and high schoolers, and you're like, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to jump into this. We love having those conversations as orange specialists. And so don't hesitate to reach out to us. FindMyOS.com is a way that you can find out who your orange specialist is if you don't know, or if you're not using XP3, you can find out who your orange specialist would be and still reach out to us if you want to have this kind of conversation to flesh out what this kind of conversation could look like in your context.
Yeah, and I guess I would say, lastly, I think when we look at the life of Joseph and the narrative and all the things we can learn from his life, we talk about influence and judging and consent. I think the whole, back to what we said in the beginning, like the idea that there were 60 contributors for middle school curriculum this season, and I don't even know what the number was for high school, somewhere in
I
there.
don't either. It was in the 50s.
Yeah, and so everyone comes from a different background, and they have different experiences, and they're in different geographic locations, and we can learn so much, and we really are better together.
Yeah.
Like everything we create, there's so many perspectives that we take into consideration, which is a lot of edit rounds, but it's a better product in the end. And everything that we offer is editable because we know that maybe you haven't had a chance to, put your perspective in or consider your student. Yeah. So we want anyone who uses this stuff to make it
absolutely
specific for your kids. You know them best.
Yeah. And that's always one of the challenges. We're not trying to tell anybody what to say.
No.
As we're doing everything that we can do to free leaders like you up to do what only you can do. So thanks, Crystal and Ash, for sharing this overview with us. Again, if you want to deep dive a little bit more, take a look at the season overviews in the comments. Don't hesitate to reach out to us if you want, and leave that comment so you can try to win this sweet weekend retreat and a record player that we would definitely want to see pictures of you unboxing and listening to, especially as you find out these hidden gems that are on this vinyl record right there. And there it is. That's what we're really looking forward to this season, and also for it to stop raining and to get a little bit warmer. That'll be pretty nice.
Yes, so we can wear outfits like you're wearing.
Maybe.
That's right.
I will say it's a borrowed shirt, but these are all mine. All right, so thanks for hanging out with us, and we'll see you guys later.